life of an artist is not easy in terms of finances necessarily, or many things. You know, a lot of any musical artist, they spend so much of their time traveling that the amount of time they play on a stage is a very small percentage of the amount of time they spend getting there to that stage. And it's tiring. And these days it's not easy, but it's never been easy. Back in the old days, people were driving everywhere and all through the night to get to these gigs, and sometimes the people wouldn't pay them and they wouldn't be treated very well. And for black artists in this country, segregated conditions, very humiliating experiences that they had to endure. Some of these geniuses, you know, real geniuses, treated like dirt. So you have to really want to do it. And I admire anybody who does do it for their whole life. I just have untold admiration for them and what they do and what they go through to make you and me happy, you know, with their music. I went to Nashville with these tapes under my arm just like everybody else, and I got lucky. The right day, I hit the right guy in the right day. If I'd had a family at one particular time, I might not have been able to do this. I might just have had to get a job. I would hope, I tried at one point when I had a girlfriend and her daughter living with me, and I just said, well, I could live in hand to mouth like I do. It's okay for me, but it's not good for them. And I tried to get a job, and I had all these credentials, all this stuff I'd done, and I figured, oh, I won't have a problem. Nobody hired me. And I ran into one fellow. I tried the Country Music Hall of Fame. I just wanted a job there. I know, I'm interested in country music history. I figured I could do something there. And I'd written a couple of books by that point. And I never heard back. I said, finally I ran into the fellow that ran the place, Bill Ivey, at some gathering. I said, did you never get my resume? He said, oh yeah, I got it. It was very impressive. And I said, well, what about it? And he said, well, frankly, the only job here for you is mine, and I'm not going to quit. And I didn't want his job. I just wanted a job. I would have done anything. And I have, in the jobs I did have, when I ran the Club 47 or when I did these jazz tours of folk music, I worked hard. I did anything that had to be done. I've swept up, I've done everything. And will do everything, as long as to get something done, get a show done, get it, whatever it is, I will do it and have done it. That's the way you need to be. And but I didn't get the job, and because I didn't get the job, then my girlfriend and her daughter moved out to her mother's, and I was free to go to work with Nancy Griffith. If I'd had that job, I wouldn't have done that. So you don't know.
The musical landscape today is almost a completely different animal than when I was growing up. And it's good and it's bad. I mean, now every piece of music that ever existed is available to you within a couple of, you just have to type a word and a half, you know. Oh my God, I would have loved that when I was a teenager. There were certain songs or movies that you kind of heard about or read about, but you couldn't ever see them. Where are you going to see them? Or how do you get an obscure movie or an obscure record? And now it's all there online. The bad part, of course, is that the people who wrote these things don't get paid. So there are people who no longer can become professional because they can't make a living out of doing it. But you know, they're trying to figure that out. They've sort of figured it out over the years, but it's very different. But on the other hand, it doesn't seem to stop anyone from wanting to write music, because there's, Lord knows, so much music now. And things like Spotify are great, how it says, oh, if you like this, you might like this. The not the bad part is, if you like this, you might like this. But they should also say, if you like this, you've never heard of this, but you ought to check it out. And that was what was great about when I grew up on the radio, how it was just all on one station. You had to hear everything.
The radio that used to be so helpful is no longer helpful. 3 companies own about 6,000 or 7,000 radio stations. So many people of my, not a little younger than me, but the artists like John Prine, Jerry Jeff Walker, Arlo Guthrie, Judy Collins, you name them, that music was all played on FM radio. And those fans are still with them from 30, 40 years ago. But there's no radio like that anymore. I mean, I have a show on Royalton Community Radio that's only 100 watts, and we're not getting too many people, that way. But those FM stations back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, they had huge audiences, and that's how people heard music. If you can't hear it, now my granddaughter, she downloads something, and she will download a song. But she won't download the whole album. Well, when I bought albums, there were many songs in there that I would never have heard if I didn't have them on that album.
But I'm equally as guilty. When I get in the car now, I have my specific channels on Sirius XM that things that I already know, which is bad. Every now and then I'll put on like top 40 to hear what's going on, and it is brilliant. I mean, I hear the music that's on is fantastic. The records sound unbelievable, and the songwriting is still great. I mean, it's a different kind of songwriting, Lord knows, than the golden age of the American songbook. But they're still songs, and they're still great, and they're still appealing to people. And there's so much more equipment. Now anyone can make a record, something that sounds like a full mastered record, or create an entire orchestration, and can write a concerto and orchestrate it all. Just, even this stuff is bigger than what most people need nowadays. I literally could do it on my phone. So that's incredible. The bad part is it maybe makes people not practice enough. Lord knows singers no longer feel like they have to learn how to sing in pitch, in tune, because it can be pitched so easily. In the old days, long before I was born, if Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald, they were on the road singing with bands, they had to sing in tune. No musician would put up with a singer who wasn't singing in tune. I mean, you listen to their records and it's all perfect. They weren't comping vocals from 16 takes and then pitching them. It had to be just right, full from the beginning to end. So that's something people don't exercise anymore. They don't need to. That's not good. On the other hand, people who have great emotion, who maybe couldn't have been a professional singer at one time, now can, because of the stuff that can be fixed. It does open the door now to people who maybe never could have had that exposure. Even myself, I don't have a good voice. I can put over a song very well. But if I cut a demo of me singing, I go in and I tune it. I can hear even as I'm singing it, oh, why aren't I hitting that note right in tune? But I can fix it. So it's a great help to me, so that when people listen to my demos, they not only hear me emotionally putting it over, but they get to not have to go, oh, that note. It's incredible what's going on. And the Lord knows what will be coming down the pike, and how they'll laugh at the rudimentariness of what we're now doing.
Everything is totally different, and I stopped being in the business 20 years ago because I was in the publishing business. Was the only way I ever had to build up any kind of equity, and I could see this coming. I'm not a businessman. Irish have an expression, The dog in the street knew. When these politicians said, oh, I didn't know that was happening, and the people on the street said, the dog in the street knew. Well, this particular dog in the street knew that this new model, the digital world, was a revolution, and it was going to change everything in life, everything. And in our business, one of the changes was going to be that we weren't going to get paid. Well, I mean, we were getting paid. We might not be getting paid all the money somebody owed us, but we were getting a pretty good chunk of it. When you bought a CD, the people that wrote the songs on that CD, the artists that sang the song on the CD, the producer that produced the CD, all got money. Well, now I get statements, that show what I'm getting from, say, the Nancy Griffith song that gets played on Spotify thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and I might get $1.10 or something like that. Well, I could see this coming, but I didn't know how bad it was going to get. I really didn't. But I said to and I was 60 years old, I said to my partners, we loved this company. We had wonderful songwriters. It was like a family. And I just came in one day and said, well, I think I'm going to have to pull out of this. And we had a way to do this. And everybody was surprised because we'd been quite successful. We looked pretty good. One reason we were successful was that a lot of our songs were recorded by Garth Brooks. And Garth Brooks sold 100 million records. Well, we were getting paid on those records. Well, I said, well, I don't see how this is going to work. And one of my partners had been in business and was very thoughtful. And he came back to me the next day. He said, I think you're right. And it was the hardest thing we've ever done, any of us. We had to tell all the writers that we're going to stop and why we were going to stop. And it took us 18 months we sold the company to a large publisher. So I got out of that business because I just couldn't see how this was going to work, and I still don't know how it's working. I see a lot of young artists, they get their songs on YouTube, they're not getting paid for that.
I always, the same advice anyone gives, which is for people to just show up wherever you can and do whatever you can, wherever you can, to never think, that's not worth my time. Because you absolutely never know that cliche of being in the right place at the right time, or who's going to show up, be in the audience. Even if there's only 5 people in the audience, one of those people could be someone that will change your life. I've lived through this experience now on both sides of it. A girl's video came up on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I happened to mention her name to someone working on the new musical we're writing, and they were like, oh, I know her, I worked with her, and now she's going to be reading the lead role at a reading of our new musical. And so the fact that she showed up at a nightclub once and someone posted a video of it, who would know that I might see it and she would be perfect for the musical? I mean, you just never ever know. And nowadays there's so much exposure possible that didn't exist at all when I was a kid.